Ulmin reached out his hand, the key lit up, and a golden beam immediately shot straight into the heavenly Tao sword lying on the lake surface. He cheered excitedly. It's done. A perfect success. Strands of golden light enveloped and tightly wound around the heavenly Tao sword, creating a mystical spectacle. The faint soul sighed endlessly, while Ulmin turned pale and stammered. What's happening? Why is it sucking away my life force like this? In the blink of an eye, the heavenly Tao sword on the lake's surface cracked open. Ulmin's red blood followed the golden light stream, seeping into the sword blade, while the rest spread across the water's surface, dyeing the entire area red. Ulmin's cold sweat poured off him like he was bathing. His eyes bulged, unable to believe what was happening before his eyes. Following that, the heavenly Tao sword suddenly exploded, causing huge waves on the lake. The aftershock sent Ulmin flying backward, and he let out a miserable shriek. Ulmin fell heavily to the ground, rainwater splashing all around him. He stared in horror and shouted, "Where is my sword? Oh, heavenly Tao sword." The giant chains surrounding the large tower also snapped simultaneously, releasing the sealed energy. The water in the lake swirled into a giant vortex at the center, and the nearby tower began to lean precariously, threatening to collapse at any moment. Onged, being pressed down by Reincarnator's phantom hand, stared in astonishment. Wait, that sword and tower. Could it be the seal? This lake is actually, Reincarnator calmly explained. In the original heaven-slaying battle of the profound sword Great World, the heavenly Tao wanted to sacrifice all living beings to achieve transcendence, but it failed, and was sealed here. Only a part of its consciousness managed to escape. Only down there, coincidentally, is the descendant of the person who sealed the heavenly Tao, and his fresh blood is the key to breaking the seal. Reincarnator gave a faint smile and sneered. This is exactly why it kept him alive, until now. Onged immediately understood that he had been tricked. He strained and shook off the pressing hand, roaring, "So you knew everything from the start, turning all of us into pawns to pave the way. They'll fight you to the death." Reincarnator lightly waved his hand, and the phantom hand turned into a punch that slammed Onged into the ground. Amidst the swirling dust, he calmly said, "Your role is over." Onged was beaten, until he continuously coughed up blood, gasping weakly. The sect master of the Shu sect, Snow Sword Immortal, and the other elders stared in shock at this scene. One elder couldn't help but exclaim, "The seal has been broken already." He stared in horror. Did Reincarnator kill all those high-level figures from the outside world? The sect master of the Shu sect mumbled in confusion. What exactly does he want to do? Snow Sword Immortal next to him hesitated. "I'm afraid this isn't a good sign." Snow Sword Immortal couldn't help but feel lost in confusion. Facing the enemies from the outside world, there was still some hope, but facing Reincarnator, only despair remained. Ulmin stood by the cliff edge, looking down at the newly formed bottomless chasm. He muttered in disbelief. Did that old man from the Infinite Valley trick me? What in the world have I done? Reincarnator suddenly appeared beside him, and replied with a calm smile, "It's truly fortunate that I had you. Only then could I find this place. Thanks to you, the seal built from countless bones of your ancestors was open." Ulmin turned pale and confusedly questioned, "Fortunate? Because of me?" Reincarnator laughed and replied, "Exactly. Inside here is the heavenly Tao's will, which your ancestors went through great difficulties to seal." Ulmin turned ashen, muttering, "Am I a sinner?" Reincarnator interjected, "Not exactly. At least, for now, you are still the great hero who saved the profound sword world." Cold sweat streamed down Ulmin's face. He forced a grim smile uglier than crying. "Do you mean that because you are standing here now, I get to be the hero?" Reincarnator glanced at him. Your mind processes things quickly enough." Ulmin lowered his head, his face darkening. "I never expected everything to be part of your plan. I admit it. I cannot compete with you." At this moment, Ulmin's last shred of arrogance vanished. He knelt down and begged Reincarnator, "Please don't kill me. I want to follow you. Be your subordinate. I want to go outside and see the world." Hearing this, a huge question mark appeared in Reincarnator's mind. Sweating profusely, Ulmin continued nervously, "The strength of your personal attendant is comparable to mine. Perhaps I am qualified, right? I just helped you with something major. Please give me a chance." Reincarnator silently glanced at him. Without saying a word, he suddenly gave a slight smile. "All right then." Hearing this, Ulmin raised his head, looking overjoyed. "That, young master, Ulmin swears loyalty until death." At that very moment, an extremely powerful surge of spiritual energy suddenly shot up from the abyss. Reincarnator and Ulmin simultaneously looked towards it. The next second, Ulmin turned around without hesitation and ran off. "This small one will no longer block young master's path. I will go over there and help you deal with Snow Sword Immortal and his companions." He gave a faint laugh, a malicious glint appearing in his eyes as he thought to himself, "He'd fighting. It would be best if both sides get injured. I will find a chance to sneak out and reveal what you've done to the forces from the outside world. Let's see how you explain yourself then." Reincarnator glanced over and smiled blandly. He had no intention of interfering. choosing instead to let the other party continue their act. The red clouds swirled in the sky like a gigantic vortex, and lightning flashed continuously like disco lights. The elder accompanying the Shusek master and the snow sword immortal cried out in panic, "Oh my god, heaven and earth truly have changed. Is this the power of the heavenly Dao?" A wave of sinister energy swept past. The Shusek master screamed agonizingly, "My soul is about to shatter. This fear is 10 times worse than what I felt back at the Shusek." The snow sword immortal plunged his sword into the ground to resist, wondering, is he trying to fight this power by himself? He must be insane. Gu Change curled his lip into a sneer. "It seems you finally decided to show yourself. I imagine it was quite difficult for you to form consciousness. If you obediently hand over the world origin, I will grant you the chance to exist." The will of the heavenly Tao transformed into a giant eye staring down from the sky. At the same time, countless giant hands erupted from the ground as if to crush Gu Chang. The heavenly Tao roared, "All those who disrespect the heavenly Tao deserve to be annihilated." Gu Chang pulled out the immortal slaying guard, curling his lip as he said, "You really don't know anything at all." As soon as Gu Chang finished speaking, the giant hands reaching towards him were suddenly cut through as if they were butter. The immortal slaying guard in Gu Chang's hand shone brightly, then suddenly became many times larger. Immediately, an earth-shattering wave of power shot out from the guard, flying straight up to attack the heavenly Tao. The heavenly Tao roared, repeating the same refrain, "'Tis respectful to the heavenly Tao, deserving of death." As soon as the heavenly Tao finished speaking, a huge wave of power descended from the sky. The immortal slaying guard took the full force of the blow and cracked slightly. With a crash, the immortal slaying bird was knocked down to the ground by the heavenly Tao. Du Change stood in mid-air, looking slightly surprised at this scene. Realizing things weren't going according to plan, he raised an eyebrow, thinking to himself, this newly awakened heavenly Tao has truly terrifying strength. Even the immortal slaying guard was outmatched. Its power must definitely rival the 18 ancestors. Without giving Gu Change time to think further, the heavenly Tao launched its next attack. Gu Change hastily created a protective barrier around himself. Gu Change was also knocked down to the ground. Smoke and dust filled the entire area, and large cracks appeared everywhere on the surface. It seemed this blow had been quite painful. Linen ran over to the Shusek master and the elder, causing them to call his name in astonishment. Linen shouted, "The space here is about to collapse. Quickly take out the heavenly image compass. It'll lead everyone to teleport out." The sky was now filled with the eyes of the heavenly Tao, and its voice echoed everywhere. To dare to delude yourself into challenging the heavenly Tao truly is foolish. At that moment, the ground suddenly exploded, and a terrifying wave of death energy began to gather. Yu Chai shot up from the ground, surrounded by countless strange, dark auras. He gave a faint laugh, still trying to pretend. "I'll drag your true body out and beat you black and blue." Looking at the horrifying death energy rising up, someone in the Shu sect master's group muttered in surprise, "Isn't this a great catastrophe?" Everyone stood stunned, not daring to utter a single word. The Shu sect master pulled out the heavenly image compass, his face drained of color, and shouted at Lin Yin, "What exactly is going on?" Lin Yin hastily explained, "The heavenly Daos will wants to sacrifice everyone here, and Gu Changja isn't ordinary either. There's no time to explain now. Let's just escape first, and talk later." Having said that, the heavenly image compass in the Shu sect master's hand suddenly lit up brightly. Outside, people on the flying ship saw the eerie energy rising from the ancient ruins and started to murmur amongst themselves. They discuss, "The ancestor's aura has vanished. What exactly happened inside? The entire ruins are covered in black-purple fog, making it impossible to get close. The surrounding space is also extremely chaotic." Just then, a teleportation gate suddenly appeared right before their eyes. Someone on the flying ship shouted, "A teleportation gate. Look, someone's coming out." When they saw the Shu sect master's group appear, someone next to Du Feinan said excitedly, "It's them." Another person shouted, "Capture them. They managed to escape alive. They must be involved in the ancestor's death and the awakening of the world's will." The Shu sect master turned pale with fear, realizing, these are people from the outer realm. Lin An led the group, smiling reassuringly, "Don't be afraid. I also have something I want to tell them." Right after that, the four of them were neatly captured and tied up. The Snowsword Immortal could only sigh. Lin An's face turned pale as he said regretfully, "I didn't expect so many experts from the outer realm to have come here." Du Feinan stood in front of Lin An, frowning as she demanded, "Tell me right now, what happened inside? Why did you harm our ancestor?" Lin An replied irritably, "Based on our meager strength, do you really think we could harm those old monsters?" Lin An smiled slyly. "We all saw it with our own eyes. They were all killed by that Gu Chang." As soon as these words left his mouth, the expressions of Du Feinin's group changed immediately. Lin An ignored their expressions and continued with a cold laugh. His entire body was filled with a strange aura, like a demon from hell. "He killed your ancestor without batting an eye. Ensure you understand this in your hearts already. Hurry up and set up a killing formation." or else no one will be able to stop him once he gets out. Du Feiниan stepped forward aggressively, without a word delivering a resounding slap directly to his face. She scolded him loudly. You nonsense-spouting liar. How dare you frame young Master Chang and try to sow discord between us? Are you tired of living? Laman's expression at this moment was extremely peculiar. He stared wide-eyed, still not understanding what was happening. Ufina ordered Laman to be escorted to a strict prison, refusing to listen to any explanations. Laman stared in disbelief, shouting, if you don't believe me, just use a soul-searching technique to check. Everyone here clearly saw what happened. Knowing he was about to be taken away, Laman quickly looked at the crowd and shouted, hey, there are so many of you here. Are you all complete idiots? The atmosphere suddenly became tense. The crowd forced awkward laughs. Oh, he's almost dead and still dares to talk nonsense. Another person agreed. Exactly. What kind of prominent figure is young Master Gucheng? How could he let him act so recklessly? Ulmu was stunned after hearing this. He opened his eyes wide in shock, unable to believe what he had just heard. Before being dragged away, Ulmu laughed hysterically. Ahaha, are you afraid of Gucheng to this extent? You don't even dare to question him. Your so-called upper realm will end up just like us sooner or later. The crowd immediately started buzzing. This kid must be insane. Does he know how big our upper realm is? He dares to compare it to his insignificant little world. Meanwhile, inside the ancient mysterious ruins, Gucheng looked straight ahead and asked, how much longer do you intend to hide? Do you want me to collapse this entire space before you show yourself? As soon as he finished speaking, a ferocious great dragon lunged to Gucheng with its wide mouth agape. He nearly smirked. He reacted extremely quickly, unleashing an attack on the dragon. The powerful spiritual force passed through it, causing its body to shatter into pieces. Gucheng suddenly jumped backward, muttering, why are you so stubborn? He swung his long spear horizontally, instantly splitting the frantically pursuing dragon in two. The voice of the heavenly Tao suddenly rang out in Gucheng's ear. There was originally no enmity between us. Why are you pursuing me relentlessly? Gucheng laughed in response. You've already attacked me. Am I not allowed to retaliate? Amidst the faint clouds, the heavenly Tao finally revealed itself. It calmly stated, since you are so eager to meet me, I will grant your wish. As soon as it finished speaking, the heavenly Tao's colossal hand reached out to Gucheng. It had been a very long time since it used its true form to engage in battle. The heavenly Tao suddenly launched an attack, striking down where Gucheng stood, as if trying to crush him into pieces. A cold voice rang out. Can you withstand this? In the very next moment, the heavenly Tao suddenly opened its eyes wide, a perplexing hint of doubt flashing within them. Just before its colossal hand reached him, Gucheng suddenly pulled out the great Tao treasure vase. Sensing the danger, the light in the heavenly Tao's eyes immediately vanished, and its face suddenly broke out in a cold sweat. Outside the ancient mysterious ruins, the heavenly Tao's colossal hand suddenly pierced through the space above, unleashing terrifying spiritual power upon the city below. Countless areas within the city exploded from the impact, and screams echoed ceaselessly. What is that? In the very next moment, a gigantic spear suddenly pierced through space, stabbing directly into a mountain and causing a massive explosion, with white dust and smoke billowing everywhere. Inside the ancient mysterious ruins, Gucheng's colossal Dharma form punched directly at the heavenly Tao. Outside, a massive wave suddenly appeared, surging toward the city, and causing people to flee in panic. The order of heaven and earth is in chaos. The rules were completely shattered. Gucheng created countless chains to restrain the heavenly Tao, holding the great Tao treasure vase in one hand and tightly gripping its neck with the other. Without the heavenly Tao maintaining the world, countless boulders suddenly fell from above onto the city below. As bright golden fire filled the sky, the city lord looked at the scene before him and cried out in despair. What exactly happened? Is the sword profound world about to be destroyed? Shin'e King's mother supported him, anxiously looking up at the sky and calling, a king. The people on the airship quickly steered it toward the exit of the sword profound world. They loudly shouted, hurry up, retreat to the camp, at the exit of this realm. Right now, powerful figures from many factions are stabilizing the space there. Human looked at the fluctuating sky before him and asked Tuang Pi, hey, could this be the activity inside the ancient mysterious ruins? This kind of power looks like it wants to destroy half of the sword profound world. Jufina stood silently next to them, offering no response. She worriedly thought to herself, is Gucheng human? If it truly is him, how can we possibly survive in his presence? The space inside the ancient mysterious ruins appeared full of cracks, as if it were about to shatter completely. Gucheng stood opposite the heavenly Tao and asked, have you clearly recognized the situation? The heavenly Tao, beaten into submission, replied with a distressed expression. Yes, I have clearly recognized it. Gucheng smiled contentedly. Very good. Now tell me how to seize the origin of this world. The Tao of Heaven honestly replied to him that this origin realm contained countless living beings, and only by sacrificing everyone could it be refined. To obtain this origin, All you need to do is one extremely simple thing, which is, he looked directly at Gu Changji and declared, destroy this entire world. Gu Changji rubbed his chin in thought. Destroy. The Tao of Heaven warned again. If you do that, you will be pursued by karmic fire, causing endless calamities. By then, the benefits will be few, and the harm will be great. Gu Changji looked at him with an indifferent gaze. What about you? Why are you so determined to sacrifice living beings? The Tao of Heaven burst out laughing in front of Gu Changji. You and I are not the same. When I instigate a world-destroying war, it follows the cycle of cause and effect reincarnation. Not only do I avoid karmic fire, but I also gain merit. Our natures are different, which is why I advise you to give up. Hearing this, the smile on Gu Changji's lips immediately disappeared. That's right. I'm handsome and kind-hearted. How could I possibly do such an unscrupulous thing? The next second, he let out a sinister smile, just like a cunning old fox full of calculations. An unscrupulous thing like that is much more suitable for you to do. Hearing this, the Tao of Heaven was stunned, a look of confusion clearly appearing on its face in an instant. After dealing with the Tao of Heaven, Gu Changji stretched to relax his muscles and bones. It seems the great battle just now has caused considerable impact on this world. He smiled and thought to himself, even though it was transformed from the will of the Tao of Heaven, its true body is no different from a living being, making it easier to control. So many powerful cultivators from the upper realm died here. I fear they have already guessed who did it. They don't dare to say anything now, but when they return to the upper realm, the news spreading will cause considerable trouble. Thinking this, Gu Changji transformed into a beam of light and flew towards the group from the upper realm waiting outside. As soon as they saw him, someone excitedly cheered. Young Master Changji has returned. Gu Changji clasped his hands behind his back and asked, excuse me, where is your eldest princess? The guard bowed respectfully and replied, in the main hall. There, he calmly responded. Thank you. As Gu Changji walked towards the main hall, two guards whispered to each other. Young Master Changji is so polite to lowly soldiers like he is. How could he possibly kill people of the imperial ancestor? The other replied, that's right. It seems those slanderous rumors were all fabricated lies, defaming him. Gu Changji pushed the door open and stepped inside the main hall. Yufian seemed to have been waiting here for a long time. The two stared at each other, neither saying a word. It was still Gu Changji who smiled and spoke first. It seems you've been standing here waiting for me for a very long time. Yufian calmly admitted it. Gu Changji moved closer. In that case, you must have guessed my intention, right? Yufian replied composedly. Young Master Changji intends to bury all of us here, and then monopolize the origin of the Sword Immortal Great Realm. Correct. Gu Changji reached out and grabbed Yufian's neck. Since you guessed it, why are you still here waiting to die? Yufian did not resist, speaking calmly. Even if you kill all of us, returning to the upper realm alone later will still cause suspicion. It would be better to. Gu Changji looked down at her. You want me to spare the people of the great Yu immortal dynasty? What about the other forces? Yufian looked straight into his eyes. The dead won't speak nonsense anymore. Gu Changji squinted his eyes, as if evaluating the trustworthiness of her words. His entire body suddenly exuded a gloomy aura. Princess Fian is indeed a clever woman. In starting to like you a little. What to do now? I can spare the great Yu immortal dynasty, but afterwards, you must lead all the armies and powerful individuals from the other forces deep into the Sword Immortal realm. Yufian lowered her eyes. Although she was a bit reluctant, she could only comply. I will follow young Master Changji's arrangements. At this moment, Gu Changji led everyone to the dungeon. He calmly spoke. The will of the Tao of Heaven intends to sacrifice all living beings in this realm to execute its plan for transcendence. When it transcends, it will enter the immortal realm, but this world will collapse, and all things born here will be destroyed. Hearing this, everyone excitedly cursed the Tao of Heaven as a wolf in sheep's clothing. Gu Changji continued. Before I left, I thoroughly investigated these matters. Now, the will of the Tao of Heaven has just broken its seal, and I fear it is urgently capturing sword immortals and powerful individuals to recover its peak condition. A person in the crowd following behind couldn't help but ask, could the disappearance of our ancestor be related to this? Gu Changji glanced at him. It seems that the seniors really still have a chance of survival. Yufian turned back. In 3 days, I will organize people to advance deep into the Sword Immortal realm for rescue. Everyone make use of this time to prepare. Hearing this, everyone was overjoyed. That's wonderful. Well, go gather people first. The monk behind also exclaimed. Amazing. Senior brother is saved. Yufian led Gu Changji to a prison cell, intending to mention the witness. But Gu Changji interrupted. Him is the person who slandered me here. Seeing Gu Changji, Lin excitedly spoke up. What are you here for? So Sword Immortal was tied tightly on one side, struggling to glance at the person who had just arrived, then chose to remain silent. Gu Changji stood outside the prison cell, smiled, and replied, of course I came here to release people. The cell door creaked open, shattering the suffocating silence. Seeing Gu Change as the one who opened the door, the prisoners from the Sword Profound World were bewildered, wondering if he intended to release them. Gu Change calmly replied, "My arrival here has its own purpose. It has nothing to do with you. This world is facing a great disaster. Most of the Sword and Mortal Realm experts have been captured by the Heavenly Tao Incarnation. You are key figures here, so it is time to act and utilize your power and influence. I will not give you any more trouble." Upon hearing this, the group of prisoners exchanged glances, completely baffled about what Gu Change was plotting, although their hearts were full of doubt. Upon being released, the entire group still bowed in gratitude, saying, "Thank you very much, young Master Gu." Only the Snow Sword Immortal maintained her icy demeanor, not moving a single finger. Watching the Snow Sword Immortal slowly step out of the cell, Gu Change solicitously advised, "Take care." In response to this false blessing, the Snow Sword Immortal cupped her fist, her face expressionless, uttering just one word, "If." Watching the retreating figures, Gu Change clasped his hands behind his back, his gaze profound, thinking to himself, "You are genuine Sword Immortals, steeped in the destiny and providence of this realm. You are the highest grade sacrifices." Linen was stealthily attempting to sneak out behind the Snow Sword Immortals group when Gu Change suddenly seized his shoulder firmly. He smiled chillingly. "Did you think I was blind?" Linen's face instantly changed color, fear clearly visible, and he broke out in a cold sweat. Gu Change showed no mercy, straightaway throwing Linen backward into the cell. His body slammed hard against the wall, causing excruciating pain. Fresh blood spurted out, and he let out a miserable shriek before collapsing flat. Linen trembled and stammered, his voice filled with panic. "Young Master Gu, please grant me one more chance. This time, I guarantee I will serve you wholeheartedly." However, Gu Change did not hesitate, and directly ended Linen's life. Immediately after his death, the familiar system notification board appeared before Gu Change, reporting that he had just received a treasure chest. Gu Change did not turn back, ordering Euphia, "You continue to spread the news, luring the external forces in here. In 3 days, I want to see everyone deeply entrenched within the Sword Profound World." Euphia replied without hesitation, "Yes." In the Moon Mountain of the Sword Profound World, incessant commotion and chatter filled the air. Someone suggested, "Let's figure out a way to escape to another world. If they can enter, we can leave." This was immediately ridiculous. Escape? Where can we run when we were born here? Another person stepped forward to advise, "The Sword Immortals are the strongest. We should now unite and find a way to rescue the captured experts." As soon as he finished speaking, someone retorted, "Rescue? Is it that easy? That is the Heavenly Tao Incarnation. Who do you expect to rely on for the rescue?" Nearby, the Snow Sword Immortal reunited with Cheneking and Xuan Dai. Xuan Dai immediately rushed into her arms, sobbing, "Master, during our escape, my royal father was captured too." Cheneking looked at the Snow Sword Immortal hesitantly, and suggested, "How about we go together and beg young Master Gu? He will definitely help us." Xuan Dai also quickly chimed in, "That's right, let's go find him, Master." However, as soon as she heard the name Gu Change, his sinister face flashed through the Snow Sword Immortal's mind. She resolutely shook her head, rejecting the idea. "Our problems are ones we must bear ourselves." She turned to face the cultivators, and slowly spoke, "Everyone, our ancestors once sealed the will of the Heavenly Tao. Now it is our turn. Are we truly incapable of doing the same?" Her face showed unwavering determination. "We are the strongest group here. There is no question of abandoning and running away. Even if we miraculously escape, how will we face our ancestor after death? Moreover, when external forces rush in to rescue their ancestors, we will still have an opportunity for reconciliation." The elder of the Sword Study Sect agreed. The Snow Sword Immortal is absolutely right. Cowards like us might become deserters. But what about the next generation? Another old man stroked his beard. "Indeed, if we have more people accompanying us from the outer realms, this venture might even have a chance of success." Looking at the cultivators before her, the Snow Sword Immortal thought to herself, "Exactly. This is the destiny for all of us." At the same time, at the entrance to the upper realm, countless flying ships lined up, rushing straight into the black hole, heading toward the Sword Profound World. Shouts rang out in urging tones, "Hurry up a little. The old Imperial ancestor is still waiting for us to come to the rescue." Standing on the city wall, Chuoba Yunfei watched worriedly and asked Yuming, "Third Prince, do we really need so many troops just to rescue the old Imperial ancestor?" Yuming, with a calm expression, slowly replied, "The elder princess instructed me to arrange it this way. More people mean a bit more safety." Having said that, Chuoba Yunfei turned and cupped his fist, asking Yuming, "Third Prince, are there any updates regarding my younger brother, Huo Battalion?" Inside, Yuming sighed and replied, "Oh, that Brett disappeared right after he went in. Who knows where he was inexplicably spirited away to." Just as the fleet of flying ships entered the teleportation gate, a sudden abnormality occurred. The nearby experts instantly paled, screaming in horror. What is going on? The teleportation gate is closing. Wei expert stared anxiously at the shrinking passage, worried. Wei clan's descendants are still inside. Yuming could not hide his panic either, turning to Chuoba Yunfei and asking, what exactly is happening? The elder princess is still inside. Someone voiced their suspicion. So many people just went through a moment ago. Immediately afterward, another expert gritted his teeth and proposed. Everyone, join me in exerting all our strength to prevent the teleportation gate from closing. As soon as he finished speaking, the entire crowd erupted their spiritual power without hesitation, launching massive attacks directly at the teleportation gate, attempting to forcibly keep the passage open. However, all efforts were futile. The teleportation gate continued to shrink, despite the relentless attacks from outside. One person roared in indignation. Damn it. Relying only on the strength of a few quasi-emperors like Yiz. Can we truly not stop it even a little? Another panicked. We're ruined this time. The eldest princess got trapped inside, and young Master Chenji is also in there. Surely the Ge family won't take their anger out on our great Yu dynasty because of this. Just then, on the other side of the teleportation gate, Adele was holding a face-shaped magical artifact, constantly sucking the teleportation gate inward. When the teleportation gate completely closed, he let out a slight sigh of relief, murmuring, it's handled. Currently, in the skies of the Sword Profound World, the combat flying ships that had crossed the teleportation gate had arrived at their destination. The magnates of the great powers hurriedly stepped forward, bowing deeply before Euphia, vying to report. But the subordinates of Ling Mountain, and the Heavenly Saber Gate, pay our respects to the eldest princess. Upon hearing them, she nodded slightly with a look that implied I know, telling them that they had worked hard, and should prepare quickly. Just then, a frantic guard rushed over and reported. Report. The spatial gateway here has been completely sealed. All eyes immediately fixed on him. The leaders of the major factions instantly turned pale, utterly bewildered, and asked, what exactly is going on? Immediately afterward, countless terrifying cracks appeared in the sky, as if the entire space was being torn apart. The whole world seemed on the verge of destruction. The people from the major factions instantly realized, heaven and earth are shattering. This realm is about to collapse. One person couldn't hold back, turning to Du Fei Ya and stammering, Elder Princess, what about this situation? Chaotic screams echoed throughout the airship. Someone trembling uttered, this isn't merely the end of the world. This is the reopening of a new world, a return to primal chaos for rebirth. Every single living being currently existing in this realm, without exception, will die. Du Fei Ya pretended to be completely ignorant, a look of terror apparent on her face. She pointed in one direction, and slowly gave an order. I also didn't expect things to be this serious. There isn't much time left. Hurry, and advance toward the center of the world. Only by finding and rescuing our old imperial ancestor, and relying on the combined strength of many cultivators, can we hope to sense the coordinates of a new spatial location. In another location, the heavenly Tao of this realm stood huddled beside Guchange, and respectfully asked, Lord, when should we make our move? Guchange leaned back leisurely in his chair, his legs crossed, looking as carefree as if he were taking a casual stroll. He faintly replied, why the rush? With an unconcerned and calm expression, he closed his eyes and replied, there are some people who didn't want to come here in the first place. Just wait until the universal laws pull everyone here. That will save us so much trouble. The heavenly Tao stood watching Guchange beside him, filled with existential doubt, wondering, why does this person resemble the heavenly Tao more than I do? Bold, ruthless, viewing all creation as mere ants. At the same time, the group of people led by Du Fei continued meticulously steering the airship, heading straight toward the deep center of the Jianshuan realm. Suddenly, an angry roar echoed in the void. Someone yelled, damn it. Why is the only way forward toward the center like this? A commander approached Du Fei from behind and anxiously asked, Your Royal Highness, what should we do if we reach the center, but still cannot find the old imperial ancestor? Hearing that question, Du Fei's expression instantly grew grim. At that moment, she could only try to calm herself, secretly praying that he would keep his promise. Otherwise, it was likely that not a single one of them would be able to leave this place alive. Concurrently, deep within the Jianshuan world, the group led by Chu Jiangxian, who were flying on their swords, arrived. A voice suddenly echoed in the void. It seems the sword and mortals from the other lands are still trapped inside. Entering this door will probably lead us to them. Amidst the crowd, Zhuan Dai flew close to Chenneking and softly spoke. That gaze we saw from outside the ancient profound ruins back the fear it was the final look. Hearing her friend's vague remark, Chenneking subtly frowned and asked doubtfully, Are you referring to young Master Ge? At the mention of Gu Chang, Chenneking's expression momentarily became subdued, carrying a hint of sadness. She softly replied, Perhaps his initial actions toward us were simply an act of compassion. We fundamentally do not belong to the same world. Seeing the people of the Jianshuan realm entering the large gate in front of them one by one, The crowd on the airship immediately started buzzing with discussion. The local people have already gone through that door. Perhaps that is exactly where we need to go. Let's enter quickly. Just then, the sect master of the Heavenly Blade sect suddenly raised his hand to stop them, shouting, "Wait." His junior disciple looked at him, full of doubt. "Senior brother." The sect master of the Heavenly Blade sect quickly said in a deep voice, "Something isn't right. This entire area is desolate, yet a single, independent spatial gate has appeared. Don't you find that strange?" Hearing that warning, the entire fleet immediately halted, remaining completely still just outside the grand gate. In front of the gate now, all human figures had vanished, leaving only layers of swirling white mist spreading out. Inside the grand gate, Du Chang saw that the group had not entered but had stopped outside. A cold smile curled the corner of his mouth. He lightly snorted. "They're quite cautious, aren't they? It's just a pity that," reaching this point, he directly ordered the heavenly Tao of this realm. "All right, everyone has arrived. Make your move." The heavenly Tao replied instantly, without the slightest hesitation. Yes, although outwardly he complied respectfully, the heavenly Tao continued to sneer inwardly. "Once I finish refining them and condensing the world's origin, I will devour it right in front of you. At that moment, I can step into that realm instantaneously. After that, ha 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 ha." In that very moment, countless golden characters suddenly appeared throughout the space, intertwined with chilling blood-red light. As soon as someone saw it, their expression changed drastically, and they cried out loudly, "This is a sacrificial litany." As soon as the cry ended, the surrounding crowd was immediately terrified, buzzing in unison. "What? Why is there a sacrificial litany laid out here?" At this point, all eyes focused on the person who was speaking the explanation. He slowly continued. "The rescue of the ancestors of the various factions was fundamentally just a trap. The main goal was to lure all of us here. They took advantage of the closing of the passage between the two realms, cornering us here, to use everyone's lives to fuel the sacrificial litany." A person in the crowd, his face full of rage and his eyes seemingly spitting fire, stared intensely at Du Feiya's airship and loudly challenged her, "Using all of us as nutrients to nurture its creation. What is it trying to obtain? Du Feiya, what exactly is your intention?" Du Feiya looked helplessly across the crowd, her voice laced with exhaustion. "I was merely acting upon orders. Please do not blame me." Upon hearing this, the people from Shinling Mountain immediately erupted in great fury, yelling insults. "Bullshit. Whose orders were you following? Even if it was Emperor Yu Tyrant, he wouldn't have the audacity for this." As soon as the words fell, a familiar voice slowly rang out. "Naturally, they were acting upon my orders." Everyone, hearing that voice, the expressions of the entire crowd drastically changed. They all looked up simultaneously, stammering, "Ishhead, how dare you? Are you not afraid of this immense karma?" Du Chang clasped his hands before his chest, smiling with narrowed eyes, and calmly replied, "What are you talking about?" Everyone, having said this, his gaze suddenly turned cold. He glanced down at the crowd from above, his voice carrying a bone-chilling coldness. "I never intended to take your lives." The whole crowd turned around in panic, flailing in an attempt to escape. The person in front screamed, "Run fast. Whoever escapes, reveal the truth of what happened here." Having said that, he quickly created a defensive barrier and turned to bolt outside. The small spark of hope that had just ignited was instantly extinguished by the cruel reality. A second later, his protective barrier was rapidly corroded by the blood aura. The terrifying blood aura swallowed his body. He screamed in despair. "What? The protective shield has no effect at all." Aha. The horror didn't stop there. Those around him also suffered the same tragedy in turn. Another person screamed, "Damn you." It chunked. In an instant, the whole crowd was swept up by the blood aura, and screams of pain echoed through the sky. "Ahaha. Save me." Standing on the thin line between life and death, the soldiers began to fall into disarray. A soldier behind Du Feiya cried out in alarm, "Princess Du Feiya." Du Feiya, though pale, calmly reassured everyone, "Stay where you are. Don't act." Despite the order to stay still, fear still drove some to seek a final escape route underground. Someone initiated the cry, "Fed, use earth tunneling to escape outside." Hearing this, everyone rushed towards the ground, searching for a chance at survival. However, the ground was not an escape route, but the next deadly trap. As soon as they got close, crimson flames suddenly erupted from beneath the ground. The crowd rushing down was burned by the great fire, and screams rang out non-stop. The flames grew larger and larger, forming a massive pillar of fire right in the central area, leaving everyone completely without an escape route. On Du Feiya's airship, someone panicked and cried out, "Princess Du Feiya, the crimson fire is spreading. I followed your instructions exactly." These accusations reached Du Chang, who was standing not far away. He narrowed his eyes at them, then gave a slight, mocking smile, full of ridicule. Seeing his expression, Du Feiya finally lost her calm demeanor. She turned pale, her eyes wide with fear. She forced a crooked smile that looked even more unsightly than crying. It seems you never intended to spare us. While the tragedy unfolded there, in another location, the Shu sect group was also facing unpredictable variables. They were surrounded entirely by fog. Someone asked, "Are we really trapped here?" The Shu sect leader replied, "The divination results indicated this exact location." Without fail, Snow Sword Immortal turned to look at everyone and warned loudly, "Everyone be careful. Our enemy is the incarnation of the heavenly Tao." Amidst the dense fog, a familiar figure suddenly appeared, causing everyone's minds to waver. Xian Dai suddenly stared wide-eyed in surprise. She advanced towards the person sitting in the fog and asked, "Father, how are you?" Sensing that something was amiss, Snow Sword Immortal loudly cried out to stop her. "Xian Dai, don't go." But it was too late. The person standing in front had already revealed their true nature. The Nanming Emperor suddenly let out a sinister smile, without a single unnecessary movement. He used his hand to stab straight through Xian Dai's chest. Xian Dai coughed up blood, her eyes wide open in disbelief, witnessing their teammates severely injured right before their eyes. Anger and pain engulfed the remaining people. Shena King turned pale with fear and cried out, "Xian Dai." Seeing her about to rush forward, Snow Sword Immortal quickly spread his arms to block her and stop her, shouting, "Stop!" The Nanming Emperor, or rather the Heavenly Tao, swung his arm, tossing Xian Dai aside like a piece of cloth. He said coldly, "Emotion is the greatest weakness of people like you." Hearing this, a person couldn't contain their anger and rushed forward. "Damn it. Let this old man deal with this Heavenly Tao." A fierce battle broke out, with ultimate techniques being displayed. Seeing the sword in the person's hand create countless dazzling illusions, someone in the crowd exclaimed in astonishment, "It's Shadow Sword Immortal's flowing Shadow Sword dance." It is said that once this ultimate technique is released, the enemy cannot evade it. Shadow Sword Immortal held his sword and slashed straight towards the Heavenly Tao, shouting loudly, "I once defeated 2 Continental Sword Immortals with a single strike. I've never met a match." The next second, a dry cracking sound rang out. The sword in Shadow Sword Immortal's hand shattered into pieces. His body was sent flying backward, and drops of blood blossomed in the air. The defeat of this high-ranking expert caused the crowd's morale to plunge into an abyss of panic. Seeing Shadow Sword Immortal lying motionless on the ground, covered in blood, everyone screamed in panic. Shadow Sword Immortal, the Heavenly Tao, maintained the stance from his punch, his fist stained with fresh blood. He gave a cold laugh. "You bunch of ants should still charge forward together." In response to that contempt, the people in front suddenly shouted loudly, "Unite forces. Disregard death. Kill." As soon as the words ended, the entire group simultaneously charged forward with the determination to fight to the death. The distance between mortals and gods was clearly an unbridgeable abyss. Heavenly Tao smirked gleefully. "This makes things too convenient. It would take time if I had to kill each person individually." With those words, he charged straight into the crowd, striking down cleanly as if herding ducks, moving so fast that no one realized he had acted. Snow Sword Immortal frowned and said gravely, "The power disparity is too vast. We cannot resist." Even though she knew the opportunity was slim, she turned back and yelled at the survivors, "Everyone, prepare for a fight to the death. We are people of the sword and mystic world. How could we fear death?" That heroic appeal ignited a powerful fighting spirit in everyone's hearts. They all raised their hands in unison, shouting, "No fear." From within the crowd, a small voice whispered, "Fear," but it was instantly drowned out by the fervent, reckless atmosphere. A dazzling spot of light suddenly flashed on Snow Sword Immortal's forehead. She yelled, "Everyone dedicate all the power of your fundamental sword spirit and fight to your last breath." The Shu sect master and all the others simultaneously manifested similar spots of light. They shouted in unison, "Fight to the death." As soon as they finished speaking, an invisible power source shot up from the crowd into the sky. At that exact moment, the Heavenly Tao, standing before them, nonchalantly snapped the neck of the person he was holding. A cracking sound echoed, and he exclaimed in surprise, "Oh!" The Heavenly Tao frowned as he looked up. "What is this?" That power source transformed into a gigantic phantom figure. The Heavenly Tao looked at the figure, slightly surprised, and said, "The illusory figure of the sword ancestor. So you still had this trick, and it even carries the aura of the Heavenly Tao." In a flash, his body suddenly grew larger. He muttered, "It seems I have underestimated you all." The Heavenly Tao and the illusory figure of the sword ancestor faced each other, both ready for the upcoming battle and prepared to deliver decisive blows. At the same time, the space outside had turned into a chaotic mess. Everything was devastated, and flashing lights illuminated the sky. Hu Chang clasped his hands behind his back and calmly remarked, "The fundamental source of these upper realm people is indeed insufficient. To condense the world's fundamental source, one must rely on the indigenous people here." While Gu Chang was calculating the overall situation, Euphia silently approached to report on her work. Standing behind him, she said, "I have finished processing that part of your memory. Thank you, young Master Chang, for granting us a path to survival." Gu Chang glanced at Euphia, smiled, and asked, "You know what to do after you leave, don't you?" Euphia involuntarily shuddered, fear piercing her bones. She lowered her head and replied, "I know." The conversation was interrupted when a giant sword suddenly appeared in the sky, slicing across the void, but its tip was broken. Yu Chang stood on the flying ship, watching the scene, and commented, "That battle over there looks pretty intense." On the other side, Snow Sword Immortal and her group were overwhelmed by the Heavenly Tao's terrifying spiritual power. The illusory figure of the sword ancestor vanished, and the entire group fell to the ground in agony. Although victorious, the Heavenly Tao was furious at the stubbornness of those he viewed as ants. The halo above his head was cracked. He exclaimed angrily, "Damn it, to let you all delay me for so much time." The next second, he rushed over, grabbed Snow Sword Immortal by the hair, and pulled her up. By this time, she was limp, and had no strength left to resist. She was grabbed by the Heavenly Tao like a chick. He growled, "If I hadn't been injured before, do you think I would have let you drag this out until now?" The Heavenly Tao continued his brutal assault, aiming for his final objective. He struck Snow Sword Immortal directly in the stomach, shouting loudly, "Insignificant human, hand over your fundamental source." Snow Sword Immortal's body was sent flying far away. The Heavenly Tao watched her figure, and muttered, "Oh, not shattered by one punch yet." At this moment, Snow Sword Immortal lay slumped on the ground, covered in blood and motionless. The Heavenly Tao began collecting the fundamental sources of those people. He murmured to himself, "It's fine. Now I will begin refining your fundamental sources." However, just when he was most complacent, an unexpected change occurred from behind him. The next second, the Heavenly Tao suddenly froze, his eyes wide with disbelief. Yu Chang's long spearhead had just pierced him from behind, causing the Heavenly Tao to involuntarily let out a curse word. The Heavenly Tao turned his head to look at Yu Chang standing behind him and asked discontentedly, "Didn't you say that if I cooperated with you this time, you would spare me and let me work for you in the future?" "You're crossing the bridge and pulling up the planks," Yu Chang replied with a cold smile and a somber expression. "I don't need a dog that knows how to turn back and bite its owner." The Heavenly Tao screamed curses at Yu Chang just before being killed by him, but as soon as the words ended, its body dissolved into nothingness. With specks of blood mixing with the wind, the Snow Sword Immortal was still barely breathing. Witnessing the scene, she muttered weakly with difficulty, "So that's how it all turned out." Yu Chang stepped in front of her, looked down, and sighed. "This truly is a tragic outcome." Yu Chang sat down and gently lifted the heavily injured and blood-soaked Snow Sword Immortal. He smiled as he asked her, "Do you want to come back to the upper realm with me, and work for me?" The Snow Sword Immortal stubbornly replied, "I can, but first, can I ask you a question?" Yu Chang gave a curious hum in response. The Snow Sword Immortal's face grew paler, and blood continued to flow freely. She forced a smile that looked worse than crying. "From beginning to end, were you always exploiting us?" Yu Chang replied coldly, and dispassionately, "Without me, your fate would ultimately have been death anyway. I merely sped up the process." As soon as the words were spoken, the Snow Sword Immortal's body seemed to reach its limit, dissolving into nothingness, which served as the answer to her question. Yu Chang looked at the mask with a broken corner in his hand, smiling inwardly as he muttered, "She really was a stubborn girl, obstinate even in death." He walked over to Chen, whose eyes were still wide open in death, and placed his hand on her head. In a rare moment of kindness, Yu Chang reached out to close her eyes for her. "Oh well," he said, "out of consideration for the fact that you once called me your benefactor, I will grant you all a new reincarnation." On the flying ship, Du Fei looked at the gradually collapsing sky and muttered in fear, "Is everything down here about to completely collapse?" Yu Chang finally returned and began to explain, "The cycle of a world is new birth through destruction. It will recreate itself." Du Fei looked at him, breaking out in a cold sweat. Yu Chang glanced at her and said, "As for us, we should return now." He thought to himself, "Going back to the upper realm this time will likely cause a lot of trouble. I must quickly refine the world's origin that I just acquired." At the Great Yu Immortal Dynasty, a series of flying ships belonging to various forces appeared simultaneously. They shouted, "Your Majesty Du Huang, we sacrificed so many people. You must explain." The initial news came from Great Yu, and now that such a major incident has happened, Great Yu cannot shirk responsibility. Du Tianyi clasped his hands towards everyone and said, "Fellow Daoists, please calm your anger. No one wanted such a major incident to happen. Furthermore, not only did you lose your ancestors and powerful experts, but even the destiny plate of my Great Yu's old royal ancestor has shattered." Finishing speaking, Du Tianyi frowned and continued with a serious expression, "Besides, we don't even know the specific situation yet, and you have all rushed here en masse. Isn't that a bit inappropriate?" One person in the crowd angrily snorted, "Your Majesty Du Huang, don't forget that young Lord Du Chang was also there. If even he died, can this Great Yu withstand the wrath of the Go family?" Du Tianyi gritted his teeth, breaking out in a cold sweat as he anxiously thought to himself, "This accursed Yu Chang, if you are going to die, Don't die right on my territory. Du Tianyi tried to appear calm as he addressed everyone. At present, this isn't the place for discussion. Why don't you all come with me into the palace, and then we will hold a discussion. Just then, a teleportation passage suddenly appeared in the sky. From inside, a great Immortal Dynasty flying ship with a dragon head design flew out. Everyone shouted excitedly. The teleportation gate has reopened. Someone loudly exclaimed, "That is our great Yu's main battleship." Chuoba Yunfei immediately jumped onto the ship. Seeing Du Feiya, he couldn't contain his excitement as he asked, "Princess Feiya, it's good that you're alright. What exactly happened inside?" Du Feiya tried to appear calm as she replied, "The story is quite long. We all fell into the trap set by that world's heavenly Tao, and the vast majority of people perished." Upon hearing this, Chuoba Yunfei immediately became worried. "What? Then where is Tuba Ashoro?" Du Feiya lowered her eyes, trying to suppress the sorrow in her heart. She walked over, patted Chuoba Yunfei on the shoulder, and said, "I have many important things to report to my royal father right now, and I cannot delay. General Chuoba, you need to remain here to hold the fort." Chuoba Yunfei immediately fell silent. He turned pale with fear, cold sweat running down his face. "What will happen to Xingyu then? Does this mean my Chuoba family must directly confront Gu Chang?" Gu Chang soaked himself in the room, with white steam swirling around him. He muttered, "Another step closer to the immortality realm." As expected, the world origin is truly valuable. Gu Chang closed his eyes, leaning back against the edge of the pool to relax. "Now in the upper realm, I must be invincible, right?" Gu Chang pressed the reward button on the system screen to see what valuable items he could receive this time. Immediately, two rewards appeared before Gu Chang, the Heavenly Heart Seal, and the Sword Dao Clear Heart. He muttered, "The Heavenly Heart Seal allows one to refine a small world into an incarnation and gain control of its heavenly Dao authority. These rewards aren't exactly what I need right now, but giving them to Main Khan would be perfectly timed." Gu Chang smiled and pulled out an item. Such an earth-shattering incident happening in the Sword Immortal Great World definitely won't be overlooked by the upper realm. He decided he should lie low for a while and let Du Feiya take the heat first to be safe. Truly a clever strategy for retreat. He clutched the item tightly in his hand, thinking to himself, "It's time for this great Yu to have a new owner." Meanwhile, Du Tianjin finally received Gu Chang's command. He said excitedly, "I can finally prepare to make my move." Du Tianjin curled his lip into a cold smile. "I've waited for this day for far too long." A colossal warship appeared in the sky above the great Yu heavenly dynasty. The crowd below gasped at, "Look, that's the ancient warship that went to conquer the small world." Another person asked suspiciously, "Didn't they say the entire army inside was destroyed?" One person wondered, "How dangerous is it down there that so many people died tragically? Even Dao attainment experts couldn't escape easily." A female cultivator interjected, "I heard young Master Change also went down there. Do you think he'll be wiped out too?" Her eyes were dreamy and full of admiration. "It's a shame. I still wanted a chance to be his concubine." The person next to her immediately glared. "If something really happened to him, you should worry about how we in Great Yu will face the Gafaunless fury." Just then, a girl passing by spoke confidently, "You underestimate Gu Chang too much. Even if that lower realm collapses, he won't die." The female cultivator was surprised, wondering who this girl was to be so certain. The person beside her whispered, "I've seen her before. She seems to be a princess of the Taixu Divine clan." The old servant walking behind the Taixu Divine clan princess suggested, "Princess, since we've encountered him by chance here, perhaps we should go meet him for a bit." The princess asked back with dissatisfaction, "Meet him for what? So I can continue being his maid?" The old servant replied, "After returning from the demon realm trip, didn't your relationship improve a lot?" The Taixu Divine clan princess immediately interrupted, "No meeting. His heart doesn't have space for that many people anyway." Inside the imperial palace hall, a person ran in breathlessly and shouted, "Reporting. Princess Feiya has returned." Everyone present was excited, asking in astonishment, "What did you say?" Du Feiya entered the great hall and spoke, "Feiya greets Father Emperor, and greets all seniors." Du Tianyi stepped forward to welcome her. "Feiya, there's no need for formalities. Your safe return truly relieves me immensely." The others waiting couldn't contain their impatience. "Princess Feiya, your timing couldn't be better. Quickly tell us in detail what happened in that small world." Du Tianyi looked directly at her. "Right, Feiya. Exactly how many of you returned?" Du Feiya frowned and replied, "The appearance of that realm was actually just a trap. Its main purpose was to attract as many people from the outside world as possible." She closed her eyes, her expression full of discomfort, and continued, "Apart from those on my ancient warship, the people belonging to the other Dao lineages have, I'm afraid, all been buried and destroyed within it." Hearing this, one person couldn't control themselves and pointed directly at Du Feiya, shouting loudly, "A trap? What do you mean by that?" Another person immediately cut in, "By what right did you manage to survive and get out?" An old man squinted and said skeptically, Do you think we'll believe you with this explanation? Facing the barrage of questions, Jufaya quickly explained. The will of the heavenly Tao in that realm had recovered and intended to sacrifice the entire realm for transcendence. All the Tao lineages from the lower realm, along with the local inhabitants, became nutrients for it. If the seniors don't believe me, please look at this image recording stone. As soon as she finished speaking, she took out the image recording stone. Everyone present exclaimed in astonishment. What? The will of heavenly Tao recovered, and it intended to transcend. The image of the heavenly Tao clearly appeared before everyone's eyes. Du Tiny couldn't help but say, such a terrifying scene. Just looking at the images makes my heart pound. This definitely can't be false. With such a horrifying trap, it's not surprising that forces everywhere were buried within it. Dufaya broke out in a cold sweat. She said, when we first descended, no one expected such a colossal trap waiting for all of us. It was truly terrifying. A spiritual mark on one person's forehead suddenly lit up. She probably isn't lying. Her divine soul is still trembling with fear. Another person stroked his long beard in agreement. But in the end, someone couldn't resist pointing at Dufaya and questioning, then how exactly did you all escape? In such a dangerous situation, even Tao attainment experts would have difficulty emerging unscathed, wouldn't they? More cold sweat poured down Dufaya's face. She mumbled with dry lips. Fortunately, we hid young Master Chang. If he hadn't stepped into fight against the heavenly Tao at the crucial moment, I'm afraid we wouldn't have been able to return. Hearing this, the woman who had just questioned Dufaya immediately froze. The person next to her asked in astonishment, he can contend with the heavenly Tao of a realm already. The elderly man couldn't hold back his curiosity. So now Dufaya's expression darkened. She tried to keep calm and replied, with young Master Chang's strength, he could only hold on and stall for time against the opponent. After that, he risked suffering fundamental severe injuries to help us find new spatial coordinates. Now, he is in difficulty, and can only stay on the ancient worship to heal first. Meanwhile, Hu Change was leisurely sitting on a rocking chair, letting a Dai push him in a private room. He took out a letter and a jade box, saying, hey, take this letter and jade box to Duwudi. Tell him to make a trip to the peerless immortal dynasty. A Dai, who was behind him, quickly responded, yes, Master. A Dai couldn't help but ask, Master, you clearly have jade slips and many other advanced communication methods. Why use such a low-tech way of communicating? Hu Change casually said, while biting his spiritual fruit. What do you know? This is called sentiment. You should learn from it. Scolded. A Dai scratched his head blankly, thinking, I don't have anyone to write letters to. Is he writing to himself? What kind of sentiment is that? The letter read, why dearest Minkon, seeing this letter is like seeing you. Your husband misses you so much. Every time I remember our days together, your husband feels that one day lasts as long as 3 autumns. Time is truly harsh. I'm sure Minkon misses your husband just as much, right? My trip to Great Yi this time had a pretty good harvest. I acquired a treasure, thinking that Minkon would definitely need it. Your husband sends it along with this letter. I hope you like it. Ahi.